started, there's a show on YouTube called Hot Ones. And the premise of the show, how many of you know about the show? Okay, good, several of you. So the principle of the show is they invite a celebrity guest to come on, and while they're doing the interview, they're eating chicken wings. And they have like 10 chicken wings, and they have one question per wing. So they start on the chicken wing that's the absolute, like, it's just kind of like mild, it's just a little bit hot. But as they go up a step, he asks another question, but the chicken keeps getting hotter and hotter and hotter, and the hot sauce is really, really intense. I think when you get all the way to level 10, it's based on, it's almost like straight pepper X, which is hotter than any other pepper in the world. It's hotter than the Carolina Reaper. It has like 2.6 million Scoville units, which I don't even know what a Scoville unit is, but apparently that's super hot. Anybody like peppers, really hot stuff? Okay, a couple of you, good. But it's amazing to watch this because a lot of times when you watch an interview with someone, they're sticking to the script, they're very comfortable, they're very nice. But when you make somebody eat a super hot chicken wing, their reaction is very different. You see them, they start sweating, their eyes start watering, their mouth is just like an inferno, and they'll be reacting all sorts of different ways. Some of them, they grab the milk and they just try to, calm all that down. It doesn't really work. Some people, they will just gradually descend into madness. They're just like losing their mind at how hot it is. They don't even know what to do. It's really, really crazy, but it's also very entertaining just to see what it's like when people are suffering and then still trying to have an intelligent conversation about all that's going on. It's just crazy to watch. Now, I was thinking, it's probably never again we could do. But we could do like a similar thing with Bean Boozled beans. Like, I could have I have one Bean Boozled bean I give to you, then I ask you a question, then I give you two, then you eat both of them. And then, you guys ever want to do that? Does that sound fun? Okay, maybe we'll do that. Sounds my idea. We could do that because you probably go to the hospital or something if you tried all those hot wings. But maybe the Bean Boozled will work. Yeah.
You're teaching me that.
I don't know. Just interview questions, I guess. I'd have to think about that. But anyways, it's a funny thing. Yeah, you have something else? You would do it? Who would do Bean Boozled? I know that guy right back there. Austin, I know you would do that Bean Boozled, wouldn't you? You're not afraid of any Bean Boozled? Oh, I know him. He's tough. He's real tough. Hey, if you guys are going to Generate this year, Austin's got to defend his title. No pressure, but he ate a lot of Bean Boozled beans on the bus last year. He actually ate all of them at one time.
Wait, the whole house?
I think so. So I don't know if you want to top that. I would suggest not doing that.
Yeah.
But somehow on the camp bus, that's always what happens. That's always what happens, the Bean Boozled bean. So here's the thing. It's really interesting to see how these people react when they're suffering. When they're in a spot where they are just, their mouth is on fire, their eyes are watering, their head is sweating. And it's really interesting to see how they react, because they don't act the same when they're suffering versus when they're just having a polite conversation. So here's a question for you. What are you like when you're suffering? Maybe not because you just had a hot wing or you just ate a whole container of Bean Boozled like Austin. But what happens when you're suffering, when life is tough and when it's hard? What are you like? What are you doing? Thankfully, James is going to give us some tips on what we should be doing. Actually, some instructions, some commandments of what our life should be like, even when we're going through a really hard time. And of course, it's something that's so important to all of us because we go through these hard times. We go through these times of suffering. But when we do, he'll just give us 3 things we got to do. We got to be patient, hopeful, and honest because God is coming again to judge. So James chapter 5. I'm picking up at verse 7. James chapter 5, verse 7. God's word says this: Be patient, therefore, brothers, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, being patient about it until it receives the early and the late rains. You also be patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand. Do not grumble against one another, brothers, so that you may not be judged. Behold, the judge is standing at the door. As an example of suffering and patience, brothers, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. Behold, we consider those blessed who remain steadfast. You've heard of the steadfastness of Job, and you've seen the purpose of the Lord and how the Lord is compassionate and merciful. But above all, my brothers, do not swear either by heaven or by earth or by any other oath, but let your yes be yes and your no be no, so that you may not fall under condemnation. It's the word of the Lord to us today. Just 3 points tonight about what we're supposed to do when we're suffering. First, when we're suffering, we must be patient for the Lord's return. When we're suffering, we're going to be patient for the Lord's return. You might throw that one up for me, Austin. Be patient for the Lord's return. Perfect, thank you. So if you look at the very beginning of verse 7, you see that word therefore. Of course, that means it's linking what he just says in this following to what he had just said previous. And last week, you guys, I know, listened so good for Jason. When Jason was giving up, thanks again, appreciate you, Jason, last week for covering 1 through 6. You want to give it up for me? You give it up for me. That was good. That was good. Thanks. So Jason taught you about 1 through 6, a warning to the rich. Look out, these rich people, they're exploiting people, they're stealing from people, they're doing all this bad stuff. And instead of James saying, hey, look, these guys are messed up, they're being bad, you need to go and get justice against them. No. He says, be patient. Be patient. Await the Lord's return, because ultimately it's the Lord who's going to be the one who is going to take care of it. Don't take matters into your own hands, rather wait. He talks about the farmer in verse number 8, I believe it is. The farmer is someone who, verse 7, he waits for the precious fruits of the earth. There was a time where he would sow his seed, then the autumn rains would come, and then the spring rains would come after a season, and then he'd be ready to harvest. And just like him, he had to be patient in all of that. So just as the farmer is waiting to receive it, we can be patient waiting for what God is going to. Also, you might throw this next slide up for me. Okay, how many of you guys have ever had one of these before? You have? What was it? Tell me what it was.
I think it was that one.
Was it Bob Ross?
Yeah, but then it got moldy.
Oh. Okay, so if somebody knows what the name of this is, yell it out.
Chia pet.
Chia pet. And what the little jingle goes, chia. Remember that? Remember that? It was fun. So if you got, I don't think I've ever had one of these before. So I don't know if I missed out on part of my childhood or what happened, but apparently I've done some research on these. You got to put a little bit of water in, I guess, somewhere on there. And he doesn't start off with the hair. Then they give you some seeds, and you put the seeds where his hair is going to be. And then you got to wait a couple of days, and then all of a sudden it comes forth.
Are they happy seeds?
With him, yes, there are always going to be happy seeds with Bob Ross. That's a good question. And then you get a nice chia pet, right? It's so exciting. I know you got Bob Ross. You said you got Bob Ross too, do you think?
My dad did. That's funny.
So anyways, it's kind of fun, right? But it doesn't happen right away. You got to be patient. You know, if you've had one of these, you have to be patient. You've experienced to some extent what the farmer had, right? He had to be patient. He had to wait a second. But then once all the stuff came in, you got to experience the chia pet, all of its fullness, all of its wonderful hair, which is so exciting. And so the application for us is, if someone has wronged you, be, what do you think I'm going to say next? Patient. You guys are so smart. Exactly, right? So it's not that I've got to try and get back at people. Rather, I've just got to be patient. There you go. You guys are getting it. You got your own line. That'll be your word. Be patient. Because God's going to come back. So if you're at work, like if Logan's at Home Depot, and he's having to pick up the slack for somebody else because they're not doing his work, and he's working really, really hard, guess what? Logan doesn't have to get back at that guy immediately, because ultimately God's going to do it. God's going to judge that person for not doing their work right. If you're in a group project, someone's not doing what they're supposed to do, guess what? God will take care of it. If somebody wrongs you, guess what? You don't have to go and try to destroy them and annihilate them. God will take care of it. So we can be patient rather than our natural reaction of just trying to mow people down and do those kinds of things and make them feel the pain that we're feeling. Now, being patient doesn't mean doing nothing, right? Being patient does not mean I'm just going to be inactive. Rather, being patient is basically doing the part that I'm supposed to do and then waiting on God and His timing to do the part that He's supposed to do. So the farmer, what did he do? He prepared his fields. What did he do? He got his seeds ready. And then what happened? He waited for God to send the rain. The farmer can't send the rain. That's only something God can do. So when we're in suffering, we're in that hard time, and there's conflict, I got to do the part that I'm supposed to do. Hey, if God's called me to be nice to that person, to seek out that person, and to try and make it right, I take the step that I can. But I realize I can't change somebody else's heart. And so I've got to just give that up to the Lord and be patient and let God do His side and let God do His work and I just do my job. Does that make sense? So we be patient for the Lord's timing. And it says be patient because Jesus is coming. Coming again to judge is what he says specifically. Jesus is coming again. That was his promise to us. That Jesus is going to come. He's going to overthrow earthly kings, earthly governments, and all those things, and he's going to rule on the earth. So when we're suffering, we must be patient for the Lord's return. Second thing is this. When we're suffering, we can be hopeful in your words. When we're suffering, we can be really hopeful in our words. Share it with me, verse 9. So I put it in the positive way. He wrote it in the negative way. It's a command. It says, do not, what does your Bible say? Grumble. Okay, everyone's Bible says the same thing. Do not grumble against one another's brothers, so that you may not be judged. Behold, the judge is standing at the door. So many times, remember, we're thinking about the context these people are in. They're really poor. And they're getting exploited by all these rich people who have all sorts of land, all sorts of workers. They're not giving them the right wages. And this is people's lives. I mean, these rich people are really messing them up. And James is saying, I know your life is hard right now. I know these people are messing with you. I know it's not right. But don't grumble about it. But be hopeful in your words. So if somebody is messing with you at school, I want to challenge you, don't grumble. Be hopeful in your words, because that's what God wants. God doesn't want us to live grumpy, ungrateful, unhopeful lives. My friend betrayed me. My teachers and coaches are out to get me. My life stinks. No, that isn't what God wants, because God is the judge. So that means for the person who wronged you, one, you're patient in knowing that God's going to judge them for that. But if you take that as an opportunity for you to start grumbling, he says the judge is at the door. And so you can invite God's judgment upon your life based on how you react to what someone else has done. So rather than grumbling and complaining and gossiping all about somebody else, no. Get your life in order. Let God take care of their problem. And you live a life that's hopeful and that does not grumble. So I was in Montana last week with Pastor Bob and 5 other youth pastors, including Micah. You guys know Micah, which is fun. So we got to meet with some student pastors. We got to go to Indy now. It was really fun. So People of the Earth was there, who you guys know, People of the Earth, of course. And Chad Poe, our speaker from last year. So it was kind of funny seeing them up there. But anyways, one of these days we went to Helena. That's the capital city of Montana. Yeah, Melanie, you want to show? Stand up so people can observe.
Yes, my nice has to practice back.
He went to Montana, you got a t-shirt.
Yeah. She got the t-shirt to prove that I went to Montana. I also got this shirt, Yellowstone. I did get my Yellowstone, which is exciting.
That's not true.
That's also true, but I'm not grumbling, so I'm not going to mention that. I'm being hopeful in my words. But anyways, we went to Helena last week, which is a lot of fun. And Bob's like, hey, there's this great spot where we can go up, like there's like a mountain, we can climb it, overlook the city. It's a lot of fun. We're like, perfect, let's go do that. He said, it's maybe a 20-minute hike or whatever. Great. So we go out there, and we get to the trail, and the trail has 2 paths. You can go to the right or go to the left. We see 2 ladies with dogs coming on the trail on the right. We say, hey, what's the difference between trail on the right, trail on the left? The trail on the left is called Power Line Trail. Trail on the right is like 1906. They said 1906, it's a lot more of a windy thing. It's going to go around the mountain, and then it's going to go to the top. But this other one, Power Line, and they said it's about 0.4 of a mile. Not bad at all. This other one, Power Line, that's straight up. So it's a little bit steeper, but it's not too bad. We've done it. It's all good. So, yeah, it is more direct. So we're thinking about, okay, 0.4 of a mile on the long trip. We could probably do the steep one. So we get on the steep one. We start going Power Line Trail. And we start going several hundred feet. It's rocky, and we're kind of like, whew. We're kind of catching our breath. I didn't think this Power Line Trail would be quite as strenuous as it ended up being. And so I got it on my watch. The elevation's higher up there, so I'm kind of thinking, maybe the elevation's playing with me a little bit. And if you've been on like one of these trails that you're going up, you kind of see like there's a horizon, and it looks like, okay, like once I get there, I'll be at the top. And that happened like 20 times to us. And eventually I'm looking at my watch, and we're 0.4 of a mile. I'm like, that makes absolutely no sense. 0.4 of a mile, because the ladies with the dogs, 2 of them, told us the long trail is 0.4 of a mile. And that's the long one that's winding and goes all the way up the thing. I said, this cannot be right. This cannot be right. So I get on my phone, Google Maps. Always a handy dandy, trusty machine. And I said, let me look at this trail. And I looked at the trail, and we had climbed 400 feet of elevation in 0.4 miles. So we're at about a 19% grade or steep or whatever what is that word called? You guys know?
Great.
Incline.
It's grade, thank you, incline, yes. So we've been at that 19th, and I look at my map, and it says this trail is a mile long to the top. And we've only made it 40% of the way there. We've gone 0.4 miles, we've gone 400 feet, we have 0.6 miles, 600 feet more to go. We're like, oh my goodness, this is horrible. So anyways, we keep going, and the calves are definitely getting worked out in ways they haven't been in a long time. And as we're going, it's just painful with every step, because we're going up pretty good. And you just hear people like, this is rough. I hate this. Why is this trail so long? I'm not sure I'm going to make it. So we're breathing hard. Thankfully, I turned on what other song could pump you up like the Rocky theme. So I turned on the Rocky theme. You guys know the Rocky theme, I hope. It's very inspirational. If you need some inspiration, look up Gonna Fly Now, Bill Conti, the Rocky movie. So anyways, we turned on that song, and it actually kind of pumped us up for a little bit, but still, it was me, Micah, a couple of guys who were a little bit older than us. But they're kind of like complaining, and eventually Micah's like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I just got to go ahead of all of them, because they're kind of dragging me down with all their complaining, all their stopping, and all their breathing. So anyways, Micah did that. He went all the way to the top, which is exciting for him. I followed a little bit, and of course, I wouldn't be telling you this story unless I made it to the top, and I wouldn't be telling you this story unless I had a picture. So here's a picture for you.
It didn't happen.
Picture it did happen. So that's where we made it. It was a mile up. I don't know whose head that is. Believe it or not, that's not my head. Yeah, so anyways, that's the city of Helena down there. We climbed a mile, 1,000 feet. You know, show the next picture, more proof that we made it. There's me. See, I knew you guys wanted to see Micah. That's exciting. And then, of course, the next one, if you don't mind showing, I had a rep with the brand. How about that? I wore my Doxa shirt just so that we can say the Doxa shirt made it all the way up. Isn't that
Why
exciting?
did I see the same background on my laptop the other day? Did you go to your shop yourself in this?
I didn't know you already made me your wallpaper. That's amazing. Thank you, Jason. It's kind of creepy. We'll talk about that afterwards. But it was funny. But basically, we made it. It was awesome. And once we got to the top, it was a lot easier to be positive. Like, wow, look at this view. It's amazing. It's beautiful. I can't believe we did that. That was crazy. Why did we do that? And it was really, really cool. But then, honestly, I started thinking about it, and I was thinking about this passage. I said, we didn't do nearly as good of a job of being positive and hopeful when we were suffering. When we were working our way up, man, we weren't doing a good job of being hopeful. It's a lot easier when you're on like those mountaintops, when you're at this place where life's really good, to have words of hopefulness and not grumbling. But it's in the thick of it, when you're really hard, that James is saying, hey, I'm talking to you when you're going up the mountain. Life is hard, or you're going through the valley. When you're there, don't grumble. Don't grumble. It's going to pull other people down. James reminds us, so many other people did that really well. I wish I had time to bring you to Hebrews 11, but it talks about the prophets who did that so well. He talks about Job, who did that so well. You remember Job? So what are some things that Job lost? Job lost his family, lost his cattle, lost his camel, lost his oxen. I mean, he lost like everything in a day. Lost his health at the end of it. At the beginning of it, he's got boils from his head to the foot. And he's sitting, lying in ashes. He's got a broken piece of pottery, just scraping these sores off of him because it's just so horrible, because Satan had come to tempt him. But yeah, Job said in all that, naked I came from my mother's womb, naked shall I return. The Lord gave, the Lord's taken away, but blessed be the name of the Lord. So Job, when he was in that suffering, in that hardness, in that rough patch, he was not grumbling. He was being hopeful. Blessed be the name. God gives to me. God takes from me. I came in naked, having nothing in this world. I'm going to leave naked, having nothing in this world. But blessed be to God. And Job's own wife told him, forget about God and just die. She did. Job 2:9. And that's what she told him to do. And Job did not do that. Job remained faithful to the Lord. So when we're in suffering, we have to keep this hopeful perspective, not being grumpy, but remembering who God is. Third thing, when suffering, we got to be honest. We got to be honest in our words. Verse 12. Verse 12. Now, verse 12 is kind of an interesting verse because it doesn't fit as naturally into a lot of the other things we're talking about. But it's a great reminder for us. Verse 12, but above all, my brothers, do not swear either by heaven or by earth or by any other oath, but let your yes be yes and your no be no, so that you may not fall under condemnation. So some people, they take this extra literally, like maybe a Mennonite. If you know about a Mennonite, they're kind of Amish. So they will not even like swear an oath whenever they go into court, because based on this verse, I don't think James is trying to be that strict on it, if I'm being honest. I know he says, do not swear either by heaven or earth, by any other oath, yes be yes, no be no. I think the principle there is that our words, no matter if you're under oath or not under oath, you need to be a person of honesty and truthfulness all the time. So your words are never going to have deceit, never going to have falsehood, nothing like that. And rather, you're just going to be truthful all the time. You're always going to be honest. And one commentator suggested that James brings this up is because sometimes when you're suffering, that's when you can want to try and twist the truth so that you can have a better outcome for yourself. So maybe your sibling hurts you and you make it sound just a little bit worse than it actually is so that you can get a better outcome for it. Or you trust, if the teacher asks you if you did something, you know you did it, but you knew you'll get in trouble if you say yes, so you lie. Those are the kinds of things where we've got to look out for. James is saying, no matter what's going on, we've got to be absolutely truthful even when it's hard for us. When I was in middle school, I was playing Little League baseball, and one of my teammates, this is my teammate who played for the Angels last year, Los Angeles Angels. So he actually made it to the big leagues. He's on the Mets now, AAA team. But anyways, he had an inside pitch come to him, and the umpire asked him, did that hit you? Did the pitch hit you? Of course, if you get hit, you take your base. And he said, no, that didn't hit me. I didn't feel it. So he continued to at bat. When he got back to the dugout, our coach said, if an umpire ever asks you if the ball hit you, you say yes. You say yes, because it probably would have hit your shirt, and you'll automatically go ahead and get your base. Can I tell you, my coach was wrong. Because my teammate actually did the right thing. He didn't think it hit him, so he said, no, I didn't hit him. And even though in the game, it would have been more favorable for him to say, yeah, it hit me, and he could take his base. Rather, he was honest and he was trustworthy, and he was honest in what he was doing. He wasn't trying to exploit it for his game. So like if Austin's playing volleyball, right, and a ball just kind of graces the very top of your fingertips, you got to be honest. If they ask, did he touch your fingers? Yeah. If your teacher asks, did he copy off someone else's work? You got to be honest. If you've done something to your parents, you got to fess up, or whatever it may do. Being honest, never being deceitful, letting our yes be yes, letting our no be no. I got one more story for you. So Paul Uthama, he's a Lego speed builder. Lego speed builder, he held the world record for the fastest assemble of the Titanic Lego set. He assembled over 9,000 pieces in under 11 hours. He had also the record for the Colosseum, the Roman Colosseum, we've seen that. Over 9,000 pieces in 14 hours. And he's trying to set the world record for the Millennium Falcon. Do you mind showing that next picture? So this is the Millennium Falcon right here. 7,541 pieces. So he was trying to assemble this Millennium Falcon and have another world record to his name. You might show the next picture. So here he goes. He's got it all together, and in 16 hours, 10 minutes, 29 seconds, he had finished the Millennium Falcon. It's a big, big thing. He had worked really hard. The witnesses were there. Guinness was there, and it was all set up. But as he was building it, he finished a bag, and one of the bags had a small piece left over. And he thought, that's kind of odd. You know, sometimes they'll include a spare piece in a Lego set. And so he was going back through the manual. He's trying to find, did I miss it? Is it an extra? He said, I'm wasting too much time, so I got to keep on moving forward. He keeps on moving forward. He finishes 16 hours, 10 minutes, 29 seconds, a world record time. Amazing. Great thing that happens. But at the very end, he has this, just this feeling in his head like, was that really a spare piece? So he goes back through his manual and he starts inspecting his Millennium Falcon. And he noticed that he had indeed left one piece out. If you don't mind showing that very next slide. On that little piece right there, he had failed to put on the bottom side of a flap on the inside of the Millennium Falcon. So he had a decision to make, and he chose that he was going to tell Guinness about it. So he took pictures of what happened, the piece he missed, he explained what had happened in his cover letter, sent it all off to them. In a couple of weeks, Guinness got back to them and said, hey, the judges, I had a really hard time with this one. Because obviously you've assembled this Millennium Falcon a world record time, but they said the rules are the rules. And the rules say you have to have it perfectly assembled. And because you didn't have it perfectly assembled, you are disqualified. He had assembled 7,540 pieces in world record time, but the perfect number he was looking for was 7,541. And Paul told his friends and family what happened, and he said, almost all of my friends and family told me I made a huge mistake. That I should have just hit it, I should have just said it was a mistake. Someone in the YouTube comments said, I would have just eaten that Lego. I'm like, I know how much it hurts to step on a Lego. I cannot imagine what it would feel like to digest a Lego. Oh my goodness. That seems like a bad idea. But everyone told him, that is such a stupid idea that you would tell them, I didn't really do it because of that dumb little piece right there that he missed. But he was honest. He was a person of integrity. He confessed it. Now, I don't know if this has a Christian or not, but I think he models for us what honesty looks like, what integrity looks like, even when it means that that world record wasn't going to be his own. And he gave it up so that he could maintain his integrity. We have to be honest in all things. That's what it is, even when we feel like the outcome may not be as good for us. But I think this story teaches us another powerful truth. Another powerful truth, because in our lives we can look at these commands like be patient, be hopeful, be honest. And when we start comparing ourselves to everyone else, there's a lot of people who are less patient than me. A lot of people who are way more grumpy and complaining than me. A lot of people who are a lot more dishonest than me. And we can think we're in a pretty good spot because of how we look at other people. But we don't measure ourselves in comparison to other people. We have to measure ourselves up to what God's standards are. And God's standards are so high that none of us could even meet it. And just like one piece of that Millennium Falcon would get you disqualified from a Guinness World Record, just one sin in our life, one time when we were impatient, one time when we said a word of grumbling and complaining, one time when we were dishonest and told a lie, we have been disqualified from heaven. And God says, you can't live with me, you can't be part of my family because there's this problem, you haven't met the rules. But thankfully, though we've fallen, we are under condemnation, a penalty must be paid. What the Bible and what James says in this passage about God is true. He says in verse 11, the Lord is compassionate and merciful. So though we disqualified ourselves, can I tell you, your God is compassionate and merciful. He's compassionate. He loved you so much that he sent Jesus to live the perfect life so that by his death, his all-sufficient merit, all the good of his life could be applied to you. And that your wrong was put on him. And the glorious exchange takes place. So when God looks at Christ, he sees your sin. And he sees the penalty for it being paid. And when Christ looks at you, he sees his perfect righteousness. And now you can be part of God's family. And you can be right with him when we believe and follow him. And we can receive God's mercy. That's God not giving us what we deserve. God doesn't give us punishment. Rather, he gives us grace so that we can be right with him. We can be alive. We can be filled with his spirit. Live this life. If you don't know what it means to follow Jesus, we want you to know. We'd love to talk to you about it tonight. But believer, we got to be patient. We got to be so patient. Not taking matters into our own hands, but rather leaving in God's hands the things that are God's to deal with. He'll take care of it. He's coming again. Look forward to it. When we may be tempted toward gloom and despair, remember Christ's return. We don't grumble when life is hard. Rather, we speak with hope because we know of God's goodness in our life. We are honest with our words, even when it's not easy or uncomfortable. And that's what James is calling us to do. So when we're in those hard times, maybe you feel like I'm in it right now, maybe you don't. Can I challenge you? Be patient. God's coming. All the difficulties that are going on, God's going to take care of one day. Be honest. Be truthful. Even when you feel like the consequences may not 100% line up the way you think, be hopeful. Don't be a grumbly person, but rather remember this life that you have in Jesus. and the beauty of the gospel, remembering that Christ is coming again to judge. We pray to you, God. We thank you so much for the kind of God you are. You're a good God who's compassionate to us, and that even though that sometimes you'll allow us to go through great pain and suffering, you ultimately have a purpose for it, and it's ultimately for our good. So help us to see our suffering in light of what you're doing and what your perspective is for us. We ask that you would give us patience in how we treat one another, how we interact with one another, that we would be filled with hope, we would be filled with honesty in all that we do. It's your name I pray. Amen.